This is the Energy to Thrive podcast, episode number 011, with special guest Lisa Goldberg. All links and resources you hear in this episode can be found by going to jenniferpowder.com/011.
Welcome to the Energy to Thrive podcast with weight loss and fitness expert Jennifer Powder. Join her each week as she delves into the world of health and what it really takes to create true transformation in your life, both physical and emotional. Through her messages and interviews with special guests, you'll be inspired to live healthier, happier, and hotter lives. Here's your host, a woman who's real, totally transparent, and gets to the heart of the matter, Jennifer Powder.
Welcome back to another episode of the Energy to Thrive podcast. I'm super excited to introduce my special guest to you today. Her name is Lisa Goldberg, and her and I are colleagues, but we're also friends. We happen to have met at an event a few years ago and have stayed connected because we're in the same industry and share very much the same belief system when it comes to getting women healthy. Lisa is a nutritionist and lifestyle coach who has a master's degree in clinical nutrition from New York University. She worked on the stock exchange in New York as a nutritionist and now runs her own nutrition and lifestyle coaching company out of New York City. Not only that, Lisa has just written her first book, Food Fight, which we'll be talking about more at the end of the episode. You'll also be able to get a link to it in the show notes. And Lisa, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Jennifer, it is great to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you. I think we're going to have a great conversation. Listen, what I want to do is to start off by asking you the basic question. In today's world where there's so much information regarding food, nutrition, weight loss, exercise, blogs, magazines, why are women still struggling so much? How is it possible that we still have this as a massive challenge in our society?
Well, I think a lot of it is, we've all heard the terminology diets don't work. And I think that every time somebody goes on a diet, they're just changing the food that they eat, but they're not changing the habits and behaviors and old patterns that got them to be overweight in the first place. And I truly believe that that's the stuff that needs to change in order to lose the weight and, most importantly, to keep the weight off that's lost.
Well, and I think that is the point, because really, as crappy as it is, diets do work for weight loss, but you never keep it off because of exactly that reason, right? So maybe I know you've got an interesting story. So I love it when, I think we're both in our 40s, right? I think we're both in our 40s.
Actually, I'm in my 50s.
Oh my God. Well, you look at there you go. So I think it's really interesting for women to hear that, people like you and I, we've had our own struggle with weight and that it is possible to overcome it permanently. Maybe just share a tiny bit about your story, a quick version of it.
Yeah, well, my story started in college. I was always like a normal weight kid, really athletic, but then I went to school in freshman year. Your lifestyle is different. Whereas at home, I ate dinner and then went upstairs to do homework or hung out with my family. But at college, I was going out every night, which I didn't do at home. I was spending more time in the dining hall, hanging out with new friends, getting to know people. So spending more time just picking and eating, which is what we sometimes do when we're just sitting around food, though we're not hungry. And as the months went on, it was really, truthfully, the first 2 months of school, I gained 15 to 20 pounds. It was like in an instant, to the point where when I went to Florida to visit my parents for Thanksgiving vacation, I got off the plane and it was almost like an involuntary reaction where my mother was like, what the hell happened to you? She dropped off this, relatively normal weight, daughter. And then 2 months later, this person shows up, which, she wasn't really used to ever seeing me that way. And it's kind of right at that time when it started where I started to go on a diet. And so, and the truth is I hadn't really ever dieted before. So I actually had to read books and figure out, well, what do you need to do to lose weight? So I remember actually lying in the backyard because I refused to go to the pool. And I was listening to a self-help tape, and I don't remember what it was called, but it kept saying, you have a healthy, sexy body. You have a healthy, sexy body. And, I just didn't, eat anything that was bad while I was away. My fish had lemon, my salad had lemon. It was restrict, restrict, restrict. Lost the weight, then went back to school and gained the weight back. And then I was going on spring break. and then did like one of those shake diets, like the Cambridge diet.
Okay, so I think that you were describing an experience that so many women have gone through, right? Because the freshman 15 or the freshman 30, whatever it is literally a real thing.
Totally.
And if it's not the freshman 15 or 30, then it's the post-mama body where the pregnancy weight just never gets lost, even 15 or 20 years later. Right? And then you get that cue where you try the clothes on, or you see yourself in the mirror, or somebody that you love comments on your appearance, and you become willing to do anything, even a shake diet.
Right. Well, that's where the vicious cycle comes in. So you restrict, you go on these diets, you lose the weight, but what happens is you don't continue doing what got you to lose the weight in the first place. So if I had stayed on the shake diet or the restrictive diet, whatever I was doing with my lemon juice on everything, then I probably would have maintained the weight, but I didn't. I lost the weight and thought, now I'm done. And I went back to whatever I was doing before that put the weight on.
Yeah. So this is really diving into the deeper issue around how the quick fix doesn't work, because if you do not change your lifestyle, if you do not change your emotional connection to food and why you're eating what you're eating, then that long-term result is something that you're always going to chase.
Right. And so
how do you do that? How do you start to look at that lifestyle piece?
Well, it's kind of like baby steps. So it really starts with how you feed yourself and what you choose to eat. And so when I'm working with my clients, I really want to teach them how to eat in the life that they live. Right. So it's got to be what their life is like, because, a mom with 3 kids, how she starts her day might be different than a person who's retired.
Totally.
So it's really got to be about them, but it's kind of like, I'm a big believer in eating whole and, healthy, unprocessed foods and getting people into a routine. And I also kind of believe that there's nothing you can't eat. And I know a lot of nutritionists would probably disagree with me, but I kind of feel like, when people restrict, they want something more.
Totally. The psychology of it, right?
I actually had this conversation with a client this morning where if she eats 1 cookie, she then wants 4 more. And so how does she get to the point where she eats that 1 cookie and she realizes that, yum, this is delicious, but she doesn't need to eat the other 3?
Okay, answer that question. How does she get there? Because I'm pretty sure there's of all the listeners who are going to be tuning into this episode, that's the problem. They can't stop. They intend to have just a little square of chocolate or just a handful of chips or just 1 2-bite brownie or whatever it is, right? And then they finish it. What's going on there? How do you change it?
So I talk a lot about self-talk and mindset. And if that doesn't change, it's always going to be a lifelong battle. Mm-hmm. So, what I told her to do is take the cookie, give yourself permission, because what the dieter's brain does is think, well, I'm going to do that right now. I'll just have a few more now, and I'm not going to eat cookies for the rest of the month, or I'm not going to do this ever again. And that's what you tell yourself, which kind of really isn't the truth. Yeah. So the self-talk and the awareness and the mindset is first recognizing, what are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself something? Is it the truth or is it not the truth? So what I told her to do is give yourself permission to eat the cookie and enjoy the cookie. And when your brain feels like you want to go back, because it's our brains, not our bellies, that's getting us back into the refrigerator.
Yeah, totally.
The conversation is, I know for a fact that I'm going to feel bad about myself. And I'm going to be, unhappy with myself if I go back into the kitchen and eat more cookies. So, you know what? I'm going to be good for right now. That cookie was delicious. I'm going to have maybe later in the week or maybe part of my snack tomorrow, I'll incorporate another cookie. So I make it so it's not forbidden. And a lot of times they're going to go to the next day and they probably won't even want the cookie because a lot of it's in the moment.
Yeah.
And everyone says to me, well, what do I do in the moment? So the self-talk is first, get connected to the outcome. What do you really want? It's okay to have a cookie, but you don't really need to have 4 because then there's remorse and regret.
Yeah.
And so just intellectually, why would I choose to eat something that's going to make me feel bad longer than it's going to make me feel good?
So that's the intellectual part. And like you, my clients are all super smart, successful, driven, accomplished women. It's the emotional piece, right? So how do we start to deal, for me, how do we start to deal with that sense of, oh, I just need a treat, or I want to indulge, or I'm a good person, I've had a hard day. If I eat this, it's going to make me happy. I should be allowed to feel happy. Because that's often sort of the other if you have like the good angel and the bad angel on your shoulder, right? The good angel is like the intellectual side, and the bad angel is like that emotional, just do it. Who cares? You can start again on Monday, right? The people who are constantly restarting their diet on next week, next month.
Right. Well, that's the dieter's mentality. And I do tell my clients, puppies get rewarded with food, not people.
Yes.
And so food's not a reward. So, when did food become a reward? So if you're having a crappy day, it's not going to undo your crappy day.
Exactly.
Or if it really doesn't make you happy for more than in the moment, because most people, when they've got that thought process, will eat something and then they'll be unhappy that they did it. So the biggest question to ask yourself is that the truth? Will it really make me happy? Is food really a reward? Because it's about staying connected to the outcome. And if weight loss is really your goal and your desire, well, then that way of thinking, or that food or that cookie, is just getting you further and further away from what you really want. And so what I teach my clients is to find that plan B. What else can you use to make yourself feel better from a bad day? That's not food.
That's not food. So this is, I just had a thought there. So like, this is really the crux of it, right? And this is it, the myth. So the myth, I believe many women hang on to, especially our kinds of clients, are, I'm smart, I should be able to do this on my own. Except when I hear you talk about the coaching process involved here, to self-coach, sometimes it's really hard, especially if you're giving your energy to, everybody else in your life, right? Your family, your boss, your kids, your parents, and you're left with kind of the crumbs of your energy. So tell me why, in your opinion, you think reaching out for support is actually a sign of strength, not weakness.
Oh, totally. Because here's the thing. I mean, if people could lose weight on their own and keep it off, they would have done it. Because I just had somebody, come in and see me yesterday, and she told me that she gained and lost 50 pounds twice. And there was part of her brain that felt like, I should be able to do this by myself, but intellectually she knows she can't. But to lose weight and kind of get through those obstacles and those moments, because here's what I know. Most people who struggle with weight spend a lot of time kidding themselves about what we talked about before. Yeah. I'm going to eat it now. I'm not going to eat it later. I deserve a reward. And I'm a good person, or I had a bad day, so I deserve to eat this, and I'll worry about it tomorrow, or I start my diet on Monday. And if you could have stopped that thought process on your own, you would have lost the weight the first time you lost the weight and never gained it back. So if you're somebody that struggles, getting the support, being accountable, have somebody else looking in to help you understand the messaging that you're giving yourself and why you're repeating your habits and your patterns over and over and over again, and give you the tools to break those patterns and to break those habits and behaviors that you have around food and eating.
I did episode number 3 of this podcast was why weight loss is like death by 1,000 cuts. And literally I said, if we stopped focusing on food and exercise and actually started to create radical self-trust and stopped lying to ourselves and betraying ourselves every day, 100 times a day, then weight loss would be no problem. But this is it. We're in the moment. We don't want, it's almost like you have to have a bit of tough love with yourself, which can be hard to do. You do it for your kid. No, you can't eat sugar right before you go to bed. But with yourself, you're like, you'll sneak it in and give yourself that permission. And so this is it. You can ask the hard questions, but most often these women aren't making themselves answer them, right? It's just easier to stay in the deny and distract or lie to myself conundrum.
Right. Well, I mean, it's and a lot of it is staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable to do something different. And the truth is, if it was easy to lose weight and keep it off, we wouldn't have a whole society and a bunch of people who struggle with yo-yo dieting and emotional eating. And so, that's the part that people can't conquer. Every time they go on a diet and they lose the weight, if the habits, the behaviors, the old patterns, if that stuff doesn't change along the way, then most people, when they lose the weight, they think, I'm done. Or I have a name for that. It's called cocky dieter syndrome, where they somehow think they're now Teflon to calories, and they take those extra bites. It's just only this, or what about a little bit of this? And again, they're kidding themselves, and they truthfully forget about all of the hard work that they put into losing the weight. And then they start to do the old behaviors, the old habits, that they kid themselves a little bit. And then one day they wake up and say, I don't understand, how did this happen?
Yeah. Because really it's a slow, I mean, weight gain can be a slow process, right? And it's exactly what you're talking about. I've got many clients who eat actually pretty well. Their main meals are pretty balanced and healthy. It is all the other crap in between. And I think in North America, we have become snack obsessed. It's like we turn to snacking if we're bored, if we're tired, if we want to procrastinate, if we're, like the mindlessness of how we're consuming. Maybe share a little bit about your view on that, because to me, that is the biggest problem. People, the not understanding the handfuls of chocolate almonds or the half a bag of chips while you're standing at a counter at someone's party, or that sort of stuff.
Right. I actually have a name for that. I made like a little slogan. It's called "It's Just Only's ... The little bites that you take throughout the day and then wonder why you can't lose weight. So every time, and I tell people this, every time you hear your brain saying, well, it's just only, I don't care if it's 2 peanuts, it's just only 2 peanuts, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
Because that's not hunger. That's either boredom, a habit, something's going on. And so, the whole thing with, snacking and eating when you're not hungry, like I'll always tell my clients, if you're hungry, I want you to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you find yourself thinking, I think I feel like, that's usually a feeling that's driving you towards eating. And whether it's boredom, loneliness, stress, anxiety, whatever that feeling is, because when we're hungry, we say, I'm hungry. We kind of just declare we're hungry, because hunger is a feeling too, but it's a physical feeling. It's not an emotional feeling. And so, with snacking, I'm not opposed to snacking, but I want people to snack if they have a long gap of time in between when their meals are.
Yeah.
So it takes the edge off until you get to your next meal. And I'm also a little fanatical on, what are you snacking on? Like, to me, a granola bar is not a good snack.
No, not at all.
And so it really depends on what you're snacking on. If you're snacking on, a little bit of peanut butter, like a tablespoon of natural peanut butter and an apple, that combination of food, it'll keep you satiated. There's nutrition in it. It'll keep you full for a couple of hours until whenever your next meal is. Most people love peanut butter, so it's satisfying.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. But I kind of feel like people just eat just because. And so when people start to become aware of their habits, like for instance, the coworkers, jar or bowl of candy or pretzels or whatever's there, and every time somebody walks by and they're digging their hand in, a lot of times I'll be working with people, and once the awareness process starts, they'll realize how many times they actually stick their hand in that bowl, and it's mindless.
Yeah, it really can be. And that's, I think, so critical. Let's just take a moment and talk about something that you said. So whether it's coworkers or family, what I have found is that so much of our food and liquid consumption really can be driven by peer pressure. And, in many families, the untold story is food is love, like for a mother or a grandma, right? I've made this for you because I love you. You're going to come here and eat it to show me that you love me, right? Or social acceptance and peer pressure with drinks. Like, notice how when you go to a restaurant or somebody's house, the first thing within the first 5 minutes you're offered is a drink. And most people say yes, down it, have no enjoyment from it, and have just packed on 100 calories, right? So how do we start to how do listeners start to disentangle the peer pressure and the social pressures to conform to an environment, or to maybe what their friends or family do, without constantly feeling like they're drawing attention to themselves? Because a lot of my clients don't want to be like, she's on a diet again. We'll see how long this one lasts.
Mm-hmm.
That story.
The judgment.
Yeah.
Right. The judgment.
Yeah. So what do you do with that?
So what I really do is I tell my clients before they go to an event, whether it's a family dinner or out with friends, to make a mental plan. I want them to be prepared with what they want to do. Sometimes I have them look at the menu in advance if they're going to a restaurant, make their choice. This way they know what they want. They don't have to deal with looking at the menu. They make a healthy choice in their mind. They have a plan. Yeah. And then, when it comes to, let's start with the peer pressure. What I really do is tell my clients to exercise their no thank you muscle. And so just be prepared that people are going to want to push food on you. If it's let's say you're out with your girlfriends, and somebody wants dessert or somebody wants that extra glass of wine and they want you to have it too. A lot of it is they don't want to feel bad that they're having it and you're not having it, because, as women, we feel like, God, I shouldn't be eating this either.
Exactly. It's validation. If I do it and you do it, then I'm okay because you're doing it too. So that means like everybody's self-esteem stays intact. If you say no, it's going to force me to look at what I'm doing. And now I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to pressure you to do what I want you to do. Like it's a lot to handle.
Right. And that's where I tell them, just practice. No, thank you. I'm good. No, really. No, thank you. I'm good. And just keep saying it. Eventually they're going to stop asking, because here's what I tell people, especially when it comes to your family, your mom, your grandmother's going to say, have a little more. Do you want some? Do you want some? No, thank you. No, thank you. Because here's what happens. If you eat something that you don't really want to eat to make somebody else happy, now they're going to be happy and you're going to walk away unhappy because only you ingest those calories.
Yeah.
So I never want my clients to eat to make somebody else happy.
So, and a lot of times, Lisa, I think that people forget that we can use our words, right? Like there's so much power in whether it's your grandma or your mom to be able to give them what they need. So, because so often these special people in our life are looking for the approval and validation and the love. And so I actually help give my clients some scripts sometimes, like, Mom, that was so amazing. Oh, I would love to know exactly how you made that so I can recreate that in my kitchen when I have a dinner. Tell me about it, and like get them talking about the food so that you don't have to eat it.
Right. Well, that's really good too. I mean, I'm going to have to actually, share that one as well, because that's really good. I mean, I'm big on telling them no, thank you, but I guess sometimes people are really persistent. It's true, especially if somebody's cooked a special meal.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard, but I never want somebody to feel bad about eating something that they prefer not to eat, because the truth is at the end of the day, it's still your choice.
It's your choice. And you're the one that lives with that resentment and that impact on your body. Right. So this is where we have to start talking. So this is why weight loss is more complicated than just food and exercise, because now we're going into something called boundaries, right?
Right.
What are your boundaries, and where are your boundaries weak, and who do you let cross over your boundaries, and who has that kind of influence in your life? And this can often be an eye-opening piece for some people.
And it's true. And that's what really makes this so hard. And that's another reason why getting support and accountability with somebody to help you, because how to navigate through those obstacles, because depending upon, how long you've been struggling with weight or how much weight you have to lose, it could be like a really long journey. And, when you come up against that stuff, or if you go, I call it going sideways, sometimes you have the perfect, physical plan, or you have the perfect mental plan. And then I hear from a lot of my clients is when they go off, they're not off for like a meal, they're off for like days. And then they have trouble kind of, veering back, on and getting back on board. And when you have somebody that you're working with, you can get back on immediately because you've got support. You've got somebody that you could be like, SOS, I need help, I'm struggling. And that's the beauty about having a coach, because you don't have to stay in 2 or 3 or 5 days, 2 or 3 pounds into it before you get the help you need to kind of get your brain back on board.
Well, I think you just touched on, two really important points. One, that exactly what you said, a coach lets you get right back on track, right? It's like having a financial investor or an investment planner who looks at your money and says, oh, no, you need to save a bit more this month. You can't do that vacation till next month. And you're like, oh, shoot. Okay. But the other part was the length of the journey. And let's dive into this. I was literally just at the grocery store before our interview, and it said lose 10 pounds in 72 hours. And there was a picture of Jennifer Aniston that this headline was emblazoned over. And I just felt fury in my bones. Like, this is the crap that women see and go, okay, I'm going to do that, because you feel desperate. So the length of the journey for weight loss, I tell my clients this, I think we're going to be on the same page. It is a lot slower than most women understand it to be. And so so you've got to give yourself time. But I also say losing the first 10 pounds is the first step. Whether you have 10 pounds or 50 or 100 pounds to go, time is going to pass anyway. So how do you help people reconcile their present to the length of the journey and to the consistency required for it?
Yeah. Well, I tell them right off the bat that if they're looking for quick weight loss, I'm probably not the best person for them to work with, because that's not what I do. It's not what I believe in.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Right. Because it doesn't work. And so, a lot of, each person's a little bit different. And so what I tell them, really slow and steady wins the race. Let's teach you how to eat. Let's get you into a good routine. A lot of it is the mindset work that needs to take place. And here's what I tell people. Every time you make a better choice, every time you choose you over the food, every time you stay consistent, because my thing is how much and how often in 7 days, because this way you get to live your life a little bit. So the more consistent you are with each better choice, you're getting closer and closer to your goal. So the focus isn't really on the scale, because when people work with me, they could weigh, they could not weigh, or they could step on backwards and only I know what they weigh. Either any way of that is fine with me. But with each better choice that you're making each week, each day, and again, it's about choosing you over the food, then the weight slowly starts to come off. And the most beautiful thing I hear from my clients is, I don't even feel like I'm on a diet.
Oh, exactly. And so that's the critical piece. So for listeners, if you're somebody who struggled with weight loss or has been yo-yo dieting, I think the one takeaway you need to get is until you're ready, and there has to be an emotional acceptance and readiness to commit to the journey. It will stay a struggle. But I also think you have to believe and have hope that it's possible for you. And, both you and I, Lisa, stand as models that it's possible for us, right? It's possible for any woman out there.
Well, here's the thing too, speaking about that, so many women who probably, same with your clients, same with my clients, if they've struggled with this, they've failed so many times that they have so much self-doubt.
Yeah.
They don't trust themselves. They don't believe they could do it. And they look to give themselves an out.
Yeah.
And so your belief system is so important to being successful and changing your story. So if your story was, at this point in my life, this is what happens. This is why I did this. And however many years later, this is your life. You get to change your story because you get to recreate or create what you want in your life starting right now. And so believing that you could do it. And also, again, working with somebody who helps you with your belief system to remind you why you need to love yourself more, to remind you why you matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And have that belief continue through the journey until that muscle gets stronger and stronger.
I think that's such a fundamental point of this, and one that I want to make sure is touched on pretty much in every episode. And it brought me back to a moment for me, Lisa, where my own self-value was fairly low, and did I love myself? Well, sure, I probably did. But did I value, right? Did I have that real intrinsic, like, I matter? No, I didn't. Everything else and everybody else really did matter more. And I had fallen off my own priority list. I wasn't even on it. And so often the first step for women is getting back on their priority list. Yeah. Right? How can you change all these other things if you can't even recognize that you're worth it? And that's the emotional piece sometimes I find.
Right. Well, a big part of the journey is self-care.
Yeah.
So, that's something that, especially moms, I'm just like, if you put yourself on the priority list and you kind of put yourself on the top, even though for a lot of moms, that's a really hard thing to do, when you're your best version of you, everybody else in the family benefits.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so, so true. Oh, Lisa, I want to ask you about your book, because Food Fight is such a good title.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I just came back and here's what it looks like. It's just came out.
Anybody listening, she's holding up I'll put a picture on the show notes there, but it's a beautiful black cover and it's a woman punching a burger or something.
Yep. It's a burger, and it's Food Fight, winning the battle with food and eating to achieve sustainable weight loss. And it's really about, what I coach on, habit, behavior, and mindset change to be able to lose weight and keep it off for good. And so it's in Kindle and in paperback on Amazon.com.
We'll have links to it at least, so don't worry. So yeah, we'll have anybody listening, you can find it in the show notes.
But it's really, and I kind of wanted to put it out there, and it's not a diet book. So it's not about finding the right plan and going on a diet, even though there's food combinations and there's recipes in there, but it's really about habit, behavior, and mindset change. And there's things on self-care in there and being mindful and mindfulness around food and eating, because that's really the main components of not just the weight loss, but the weight maintenance. and making the loss sustainable.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I actually haven't read it, so I'm excited that I'm going to get a chance to
I will send you a copy.
Yay. Yeah, to do that. Thank you so much. I think that, if you had to sort of share that message of inspiration or hope for women tuning in and listening, what would be your 3 main things that you want them to know in their heart of hearts as they're, somewhere on the journey to getting healthier and seeing that permanent weight loss happen for them?
Well, here's the thing. I know first they need to believe in themselves. They need to, and here's what I say to my clients: put your hands on your heart, because this is where we feel. A lot of the stuff comes out of our head, and that's where we think. And so when you put your hands on your heart and you just tell yourself, I love you, or, to yourself, or you could use your name, and that you matter, and that it's one you have to believe.
Yeah.
And you have to just know that it's a journey. It's a journey of, I call it a process of change. You have to be kind to yourself in the process. You have to speak nicely to yourself. You can't put yourself down or berate yourself if you don't do something. Of course, there is no perfect. So on the road to your transformation, you might stumble and fall, but if you're committed, you're going to get back up and brush yourself off and keep on going. And I promise you, if you believe and you change the way you think and your mindset, and you change your relationship with food, and you choose you over the food, and you stay connected to the outcome, which is what you want for yourself, you're going to get there.
Yeah. And just to give yourself the grace of time to do it. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to connect and to learn, to hear more about your philosophy and to talk about this and to really share. I guess my goal is to spread the message, right?
Right, exactly.
Spread the message of what's true and discern fact from fiction in this bullshit world of dieting and this multi-billion-dollar industry that many engage in only to emotionally and almost physically damage themselves, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
Everybody, you'll find more out about Lisa. You can actually just maybe shout out right now. We can find you at
LisaGoldbergNutrition.com.
Perfect. And we'll have links and everything to Lisa, and you can connect with her over social media as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Lisa, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was great to be here.
And we'll catch you on the next episode, everybody. Have a super day.